Okay, so we just processed existing cross-sections, or I should say we processed the surface of the existing cross-section. The next thing that you would do is run an automated process of the pavement itself. And so it's a little odd the way that's done, but we'll show you how, because it's existing, but we're going to do it through the proposed cross-section dialog. So we're going to bring up Project Manager. Remember, we used existing before. This time we're going to say proposed, even though it's existing pavement. And then I'm going to name this existing. And all this, you're going to find everything's the same. It's asking you questions and you're giving it the answer. And so where is your cross-section file located? So I'm just going to point to my mainline cross-section file. This tolerance, that would probably be fine. We were told at one point in time to switch that to 0.01. I always do. I assume it would probably still work with 0.1 though. Okay, pattern. Select my chain. Give it that 2-to-1 ratio. Path out to where the pattern lines are located in the geolines file. Toggle a few of these search criteria. Hit match. I match up my pattern lines. Next is existing ground. Okay. I'm going to path out to my cross-section file. Am I sitting in that? No, I'm actually, let me jump into that file. Mainline. And it just needs to know what level I placed my existing ground on when I processed the existing cross-sections. Okay, so I'm going to toggle a few of these, hit match. And then I'm going to get to shapes. Now we'll talk about proposed shapes later. Shapes are what determines what the cross slope of the pavement is going to be. So Geopak will actually calculate, if you have curves, it'll calculate your super elevation and your transition. And then the way it kind of communicates it back is through what appears to be a shape. And then it looks like a microstation shape, but it has cross-slope information built into it and elevations. But for this particular purpose, you know what we're doing here. We're drafting in the existing pavement automatically. So there are no shapes for that. So we're going to say shapeless. And then these shape clusters, again, we don't have shapes, but we're still going to be able to use this dialog. And we're going to say, there's my chain, there's my profile. And then I'm going to add this in. I'm going to select it. And I'm going to hit this typical button off to the right. And what this is doing for us, it replaced what I just mentioned, criteria. And so what this is doing in the background, see all the, well, not there. It uses a bunch of these text files that have like if-then statements in them. I should open one and show you how they're written. It basically tells the computer how to draw. It would say, okay, start off, go to the profile grade line. Go out horizontally 12 feet and at a particular cross slope. Or go to the plan view file, look out to see if there's any edge of pavement tagged. If there is, draw horizontally to that line, but use a cross slope of 1.5% or something like this. So there are all these text files for like pavement, the ditch, the right-of-way line, I mean, shoulder, everything. It's a bunch of these criteria files. Well, a few years ago, well, quite a few years ago now, this guy, his name's Chuck Lawson. He works for Geopak at the time. Came from a consultant, super smart guy, loves this Geopak stuff, and he wrote for us like every possible scenario of the criteria. And then this allows us to take all that criteria that he wrote and put it into this typical section generator, and it makes it very, very easy for us to deal with criteria. So that's kind of like on the background. That's how things are working. Nowadays, you really don't need to know that much about criteria. All you really need to know is how to use this typical section generator. And so what you need to do is toggle through these typical sections, and you find one that like best matches your situation. And so if you have 969 pavement, you might want to use this one. You may or may not know at the time of processing what your existing pavement thickness is, but there's like 3, I think, to choose from. This one's very generic, especially getting started. If maybe I don't know initially what my thickness is for sure. Maybe I'm going to get pavement cores, and later I'm going to come back and tweak my existing ground to make it exactly what the thickness is, especially if I'm doing some work to that pavement. It might be more critical or not. It just depends on the type of the proposed work as to how critical the drafting of my existing pavement needs to be. If you don't know what the thickness is, and usually it varies a little bit, by default we usually just use 1 foot on cross sections. 12 inches is very common. I think if you were to do your research, which you should be doing anyway, you're assigned a project, you look up all the old microfilm, and you look at the last job, you see if they did a good job on the typical sections, and you look to see what the total pavement thickness is. And you might be able to plug that number in. Or if it appears to you they did not do a very good job on the last set of jobs, it might be advantageous for you to go back a few more, because a roadway was built. It was rehabbed many times, like since the 1930s, like maybe 4 or 5 times probably. And so you can find multiple sets of old plans, and you can kind of, by that, kind of figure out what the pavement structure is made up of. So ultimately, oftentimes you end up just using this very generic one, though. So let's go ahead and use this one or the 969 one, depending on your situation. I'm just going to use this. And I'm going to hit apply. And then I'm going to drop down, and I need to answer some questions. And it seems a little redundant, but you have to do this. Where is your cross-section file located? And so we select that, and then we hit the modify button. See how it changed up there? Where is your topo file located? And we were the first DOT that Chuck, this is actually very, very good, and it's lasted a long time, but we just met with Chuck, the same guy who wrote this criteria in 2001. Yeah, 2001, yeah. And he is now, he helped us develop our environment for modeling, so he's into modeling now, But he said we were the first DOT, and so he thinks that this is like not that great, and it's pretty good. It's not bad, but apparently as he went along, before he got into modeling, he kind of mastered the creation of what we're doing here, because you'll see that it is a little bit redundant, but it's worth the time because it's going to automate the drafting for you. It would save you a ton of time in the long run. Okay, so proposed plan, that's in our design file. Modify. Where's your right-of-way located? Remember, we decided not to bring that in. We left it in Andy's folder. Now it's going to be looking for that right-of-way line, so we might want to check to make sure that it has to be tagged. It can't just be drawn out there. It has. Remember, we drew with the DNC manager, and so the right-of-way line has to be drawn with that as well. I think he uses that, though, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, modify. Okay, Geopak lines, that's the geo lines. I'm not quite sure why it's asking me this yet, because this is just, it really doesn't need this information for the existing. I'm not going to do anything with that. Then I go down to the redefinable variables. And you can kind of see a little portion, a little snippet of an extremely long written criteria. And it's just showing us like one or two little lines out of it, this if-then statement. And what it's doing, it's like TurboTax. It's really filling out a tax form for you, but you don't see that tax form. It asks you, hey, did anything change in your life this year? And that's kind of what this is. It's kind of like that. So we'll go with 1 foot on the existing pavement. Hatching. So are you removing the pavement? Because if you are, you're probably going to want to cross-hatch it. By default, it's yes, but we're not removing any pavement on the main line. So we're going to change that to no. Hatching spacing doesn't matter because we're not using it. Okay. Do you want to show the shoulders? Yes or no? And by default, I think it says yes. Yeah. What is your existing shoulder thickness? Again, look up old plans. This is 6 inches. Yours might be more. And it's referring to paved shoulder, not ag shoulder thickness, just only paved shoulder, whether it be, well, it's mostly HMA, but it could be concrete. And for these purposes, I don't think we need to turn on any of these. Okay, so then we do a save settings, and we're ready to process this. So we hit run. And so let's see, let's look at our cross sections. All right. So yeah, see, it took a little bit of time to set that up, but now, let's see, let's go to the other navigator. But here's what it did for us. It went out and it found the existing edge of pavement, because in that topo file, again, the DNC manager was used and it tagged it as existing pavement. So where it's drawn there, it's not just like, say, it's not drawing 12 foot, 13 foot or whatever. For each cross section, I mean, it's actually finding these elements in the design file and then drawing to them. So it's very accurate. And it puts this little EOP out there. I really haven't found that to be too useful. I usually get rid of it. And so I'm going to do a select by attributes just so I can quickly, oops, I don't want to do that. Why? What did I do? Oh, let's see. There. So all those little EOPs were selected, so now I can delete them. Okay. Now we're going to be, so now we've got the existing. So next we're going to automate the process of drafting proposed cross sections. Oftentimes it takes a couple runs. You don't usually get it perfect the first time, and so you hit process. You might have to go in and make a little change, process change. You go back and forth a couple times, and when you do that, you don't want to lose the existing. And so what you need to do is select it all. Lock it down. Yeah. So select it all, edit, lock. And then we can't accidentally delete. Well, we don't have to worry about deleting anything now because you can't lock. See, I can try to delete it, but it won't. I'd have to go back and unlock it before it allows me to delete anything. Okay, so now I guess we'll go do the side road real quick. So we're obviously not going to finish the entire job today. It's going to take a few more hours to completely get through the job, setting up plan profile sheets and all that. So when do you guys want to continue? Do you want to do it tomorrow or next week, or what do you guys have? What do you have going on tomorrow?
Tomorrow is fine. We'll still remember something.
Okay.
We'll survive the weekend.
Yeah. Okay, so when we finish up here, I'll check the calendar to make sure nobody has this room for tomorrow, and if so, we'll just leave it set up. If somebody has it, then yeah, we may have to do it next week. But well, here, let me check real quick while we're here. Let me pause the recording. Control. There we go. Okay, so we just processed existing for the main line. Now we're going to do the same thing for the side road. Again, we go back to proposed cross sections. I shouldn't have to key everything in this time necessarily. I could probably just use the same run. It's mostly the same information, but just reset, match up to the side road. Existing ground. That's a different file. That's the side road file. Actually, that's all going to be the same. The level is. It's shapeless. I think I can switch the profile and just modify it. And change this maybe to, hopefully. Did that not like it? What did that say? Oh, I guess select it, change it here, and modify. Oh, this may or may not work. We'll see. And most of this information again will be the same, so I'll just change what we have to change. I think everything else is going to be the same. Now, on the side road, we are going to be removing the pavement. So let's say yes on the side road version. And hatch spacing, I don't know, that might be a little tight. Okay, we'll do save settings. Hopefully this works. It's probably more reliable if I would have, kind of started a new run, but I think this should work. Oh no, you see that it chose the wrong baseline up at the top. Somewhere I was still pointing to the old baseline, I think. Although it looks like it may have worked. Let's see. Now it switched us to the main line cross section. Yeah, I might just have to it's usually best to process that run separately. Weird back to chain control. Is the active chain control out there around there? Oh, there it is. Okay. I just want to take a quick look to make sure it didn't mess up our. Wow, no, looks okay. Let's go back to the side road though. Okay, let's do this again. Yeah, I probably shouldn't just, I tried to take the easy way out and it didn't like it, so. Yeah, see what happens when you cut corners? Okay, so let's just start a new run. I hate to start a new run, but it seems like there's always one little thing you miss or something, so. So I'm just going to say new, and okay. So the cross-section file is a side road. We change the tolerance to 0.01. We will grab our pattern lines. We want to make sure we get this selected, 2:1 ratio. Point to the geolines file. Toggle a couple attributes to make it unique. We match it. Existing ground. So I'm going to go back to my cross section so I can just select it also. So I'm going to point to my side road cross section file. Toggle a couple attributes, match it, shapes, we're shapeless, clusters, that's correct. So I'm going to add, there's my chain and profile. I select the cluster, I hit typical. I select which typical section I want to use. I apply it, it copies down the criteria files, which are these .x files are the criteria files. And then I answer those same questions over again. Where is your cross-section file? Topo. Proposed plan is design. I don't think right-of-way is probably going to matter because we're not really processing right-of-way here, but I think that's going to be processed in our proposed run, but since it's asking. And geolines file, that's important. And probably none of the remainder. I'll turn these off. Existing paved thickness, default's 1 foot, I already know. Yeah, so we want that. So yeah, we'll probably just go with the defaults on the rest of it. I'm going to save the settings, and now it should work. Oh yeah, I probably should have changed the spacing, but that's okay. So probably a little 0.5 is kind of a lot, but that'll be okay. So we can, let's see, let's resync this up. The first one. We can take a look at our cross sections, and the width is going to match up to the existing pavement. I think if it, we'd have to look in the plan view to see what's up with that. So, you know, it's possible there's going to be some kind of problem on 1 or 2 or something, and you might have to manually draft it in. You can usually figure out what the problem is, though. It may or may not be worth rerunning. If it's just the 1, it's probably not worth it. But let's take a quick look at it in the plan view, see where it's at. Okay, so we'll toggle through to find out where it didn't work. Oh, there. Yeah. See, for this to work, it has to intersect 2 edges of pavements. Because see, with that ID, you know, when I ID edge of pavement, see it's not looking for that. I guess I'd have to bring out the DNC manager, and I could ID it, and you'd see that it's set to say edge of pavement. And here it didn't have an edge of pavement defined. But really, we really didn't even need that cross section right there anyway. In fact, I think I'm probably just going to delete it. And we'll delete that pattern line later. So I think, let's see, were the rest of them okay then? Probably the only thing is that I had a few cross sections before I got into my proposed. And so, of course, I would not want to remove that pavement. So I'd need to go in and just use regular microstation, commands to delete. Okay, so that is the existing surface and existing pavement. I guess on this job they didn't have any HMA shoulders, so we said yes to shoulders, but you can see from the topo that there are no paved shoulders. There's only ag shoulders. We look around, yeah, see.
Yeah, they're going to propose it. No, there was no existing HMA.
Now, one thing, I had this job for a while, and when Cloyd and I worked together, he worked on this intersection a bit. And were we together, Cloyd, when we go out to the field and we stop by, and the utility company, this is like a high power transmission line. It's not just a little distributing line or whatever you call it. It's more of on a larger scale, I think they call these high power transmission lines, right? So they're out there replacing it, and I couldn't tell where they were replacing it, and I knew we were going to be getting into it, and I was like, oh, shoot. I guess we should have told them. Well, so fortunately, we had the survey crew go back out, and they picked them up, and it turned out that where they replaced them, just thank goodness, was out far enough. So we got lucky on that one. But you can see from utility standpoint that obviously this utility is going to need to be relocated. But that's that's minor. Just one of the smaller poles. I think I saw some fiber running through here too. Right there. And so that it's another thing. Of course, you need to do another reason why you need to tie CAD into that. When you're first getting started on a project, even though you're not really doing anything with plans yet, you're developing plans. You think, well, I don't need plan sheets, but we do need to send the utility company sheets to mark up because we haven't really. Not all the utility companies are picking up the utilities by GPS and that sort of thing. And so we're still sending out, we're now emailing PDFs of the plan sheets that you need to give Dana in project support. And so you'll need to develop plan sheets really early on in the process, if nothing else, just for that purpose of getting utility markups. Okay, 4 o'clock. Should we get going on proposed cross sections? We'll give it a shot. Usually at the end of the day, we're getting a little burned out, but what do you think?
I think it's a good starting point, maybe.
Yeah, because I can tell.
Propose in the morning.
Yeah, let's do
How
that.
do you get it done? I don't know. It's up to you guys.
Because some people probably get off at 3:30 anyway, normally, right?
I do. I didn't know they were going to have this class. I just came to work and they said, come to the class. So I would have come 8 o'clock, so I'll go with the flow. So,
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
You're a trooper. Okay, let me stop. I'll stop the recording then. Why do I forget that?